against
Are
the
you
powerful.
supporting the baby after the mother gives birth and she can't even afford a $400 abortion?
I
A baby costs more than $400.
Allow me to address that. I'm amazed that you've just qualified human life to being $400. That's amazing. What happens if society decides that hipsters are not people, or black people are not people, or Jews are not people?
Then they're getting it wrong.
Why are they wrong? You just said we make it up. On what grounds are they wrong? Have you ever encountered a code that does not have a code giver?
Oh, of course I haven't, because a code is something which an intelligent person makes up. So of course you've got the answer in the question. Well done, but it gets you nowhere.
The fact of the utility of the scientific method is contained within a prism. It only works within physical constructs. It cannot be used as an argument for or against, strongly, the existence of God.
No problem, he doesn't want it, he's got to do it.
You wanted to debate?
Well, you're just espousing this Christianity stuff.
Yeah, and
we've got rid of all of that stuff. We've
no, we haven't.
further.
No, we haven't. Where's the progress?
Where's the progress?
Well, firstly, you made 2 points. You said we've got rid of all that stuff.
So one of my main things.
Who's first? No. You've made a point. Firstly, tell me who's we.
Yeah.
What's your evidence that it's been got rid of this point?
Okay, we've got. Basically, the atheist community, we've worked out there's no evidence for this God you talk of, and most of the stuff is all just contradictory. If you want to look for a moral grounding, don't look towards the Bible. It's just a mess, especially the Old Testament. Butchering here, butchering there, kill a whole town, kill the pigs and goats and camels. It's just nonsense. We can become higher than this. You've read Sam Howell, The Moral Landscape. We should look at suffering and sort of how to alleviate it. It's going to be a branch of science of how to conduct ourselves in a moral manner.
Right, so the we that you talked about is the atheist community.
Yeah.
So you're not speaking, obviously, for society as a whole.
Well,
And
they've got to catch up.
No,
they've got to catch up.
Right, yeah, we know the arrogance of the new atheist.
Yeah.
So,
right here.
so the new atheist says we, and I don't know if you've ever noticed that the likes of Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, they talk as if they're talking down to everyone else.
Yeah.
Just as you've seen here. You've just seen here.
Yeah, we're
Now,
asking you to rise up.
Let's actually look at a worldview that doesn't have a God.
Yes.
A worldview that doesn't have a God. Let's examine that for a second.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
In a world that doesn't have a God,
hallelujah.
how do we decide what is right and wrong?
We look at what causes suffering, and we work out what alleviates suffering, and we can look at it through a neurological perspective. We can look at brain patterns and things like this. We can look at it as a branch of health. We can say, do you want to be free? Or I'll leave it there. Do you want to be free? Do you want to
so
be
his
healthy?
argument is, ladies and gentlemen, that in a world without God, we just look at suffering. Okay, that's his argument. But the thing is, his opinion is one of many and multiple opinions. What about the utilitarian ethic, the one that creates the greatest possible happiness? What about the Kantian moral imperative, which is only do that which is only do that which is applicable to all people at all times? What about the Nietzschean ethic of the Übermensch? These are all atheistic worldviews, and they all posit different moral systems about how to decide what is right and what is wrong. And how do you as an atheist judge between your reduction of suffering ethic, the utilitarian ethic, the Nietzschean Übermensch, the Kantian moral imperative? How do you decide which of these four, which are all atheistic perspectives, how do you decide which of these four you want to live by?
Well, like I said, I think I would go with the first two then, the utilitarian.
Oh, it's two now, not one.
Yeah, because you're sort of merging these two. The utilitarian is speaking to the alleviation of suffering.
So the alleviation of suffering leads to happiness.
It's sort of like a health question. It's like you said, there could be many different perspectives on how to live healthily or how to live morally. But eventually we're going to work out that it's wrong to sort of beat up children and stuff like this. It just creates too much suffering. Or it's going to be wrong. We can have even very simple rules. Like the golden rules, all right, do unto others you want to do to other people. So then in a logical framework, we can run the system and be like, look, it's contradictory to say, oh, we treat this person badly because that person is not me.
But who defines what a person is?
Well, come on, that's just simple. Just say, oh, look, that's
Is
a
it?
person over
Is
there.
an unborn child a person?
Unborn child, bloody hell, what, you going straight for the abortion idea? Are you straight away?
So who decides who's a person?
No, I'm saying you're going straight for the abortion.
No, answer my question. Who decides who's a person?
And we all do, we make it up.
We make it up.
Yes.
Right, so we make it up. So what happens if we go back to 1932, 1930 to 45 Nazi Germany, when
Wouldn't wanna go there.
gypsies and Jews were
Horrible
categorized as non-people? You just said we make it up. So,
So can I just
why
interject?
can't...
So
one
do you
second.
think your God defends
One
against this
second.
behaviour? Do
One
you think your
second.
God defends? No,
One
I'm asking him a
second.
question.
One second.
Do you believe your
One
God
second.
defends against that? Do you believe your God defends that?
One second. One second.
Because you're barracking.
Do you...
You're gonna
One
barrack,
second.
I'm gonna
Do you... wait, the question is, if you're saying we just make it up, that's what you
Yes,
said.
I did say that.
So
We
what
got it on
happens?
record, we got it on
What
record.
happens if society decides
Yeah.
that hipsters are not people, you know, or black people are not people, or
Then they're
Jews
getting-
are not people?
Then they're getting it wrong.
Why are they wrong? You just said we make it up. On
Yes.
what grounds are they wrong? If we just make it
it
up.
produces suffering and an in contradiction.
But-
That person is a person, so they're just finding
Hold
a
on,
false answer.
but
They're
here's
finding a false
here's
answer.
the illogic.
That's what I mean.
Right.
They're wrong.
So here's the illogic of your argument, because your argument is said.
Where am I?
We
Where am
should.
I?
I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain.
Thank you. very much.
You've just said the moral principle that we should use is that we should reduce suffering so that persons do not suffer.
Yes.
And then I said, how do we define a person? And then you said, we just make it up.
Yes.
And then I said, well, what happens if society decides to make up that black people aren't persons or that Jews aren't persons? And then you just said, well, that's evidently wrong. How
Okay.
can it be evidently wrong
Okay.
if you've just said that society has the permission to make it up?
Very good. If I
What
could jump in.
objective
Very good,
standard
Bob.
are
Yeah,
you
come on, Bob.
using to define the person?
Yeah, well done. So he needs an applause for that one. Okay.
Go on then.
Because I could say, do we make up the number of the speed of light, or do we discover it? We could do the same thing with these moral questions. We discover what is the moral answer based on what causes suffering. So they got it wrong in Germany. They thought they were not people, but they are people. So they discovered the wrong answer,
So-
or they made up the wrong answer.
Right, guys. I think the word
Does that
for
work?
this is drowning. So his argument now is
Drowning.
that we will discover something that is a metaphysical question.
No.
Let
no,
us be
no,
clear.
No.
Let
didn't say
us
that.
be clear.
Did not say that. Did not say
No,
that.
you did.
Let's
You just
be clear.
don't understand
No.
what metaphysics is. No.
Don't understand what metaphysics
You don't know what metaphysics is. So let's
No,
be clear.
I'm going back to my thing. You've hijacked
let-
it. Do you believe that God defends against the Nazi Germany regime?
Yes.
You think it does?
Yes.
How did this God communicate with you?
So let me answer.
Yeah, go on,
Okay,
answer
I'm
the
going
question.
to. I'm
How
going
did
to.
the God communicate with
You've
you?
asked two questions.
What are the two questions?
One, does my God defend against that
Yep.
kind of thing? And two, how does he communicate?
Yes.
I will address both questions.
Go for it. Go.
Okay. And I got to say, he does better than the Dawa team, because
Thank you very much.
at least he will tackle a question if I ask him, even if he is talking gibberish. So
He gives it with one, takes with the other. Gosh,
let's
Atheist boy.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
so let's just look at the first question. How does the Christian faith
Tell the
argue
camera and I'll watch
against?
the video. I gotta go.
Oh, he's running away. Oh, why are you running? Why are you running? Why are you running? You were so eager to heckle and debate me, and now he's running away. Okay, so I'll answer the question, and then maybe we'll take questions or pause. So, in answer to the question, how does the Christian faith argue against the kind of abuses that we see under Nazism? Considering the fact that church history does have its abuses. It comes from the narrative that everyone is made in the image of God. Every human being is made in the image of God, irrespective of any other factor. It doesn't matter what your religion is, you're made in the image of God. It doesn't matter what the colour of your skin is, you're made in the image of God. It doesn't matter what your gender is, you're made in the image of God. It doesn't matter what class you're born into, you're made in the image of God. And that image is what bestows upon you dignity. Now you can denigrate that dignity by other things, by taking on false beliefs. You can denigrate that dignity by self-abuse. But that dignity is given to you from your conception. Now, in answer to how does God speak to us? God has spoke to us in the past through his prophets, and their accounts are recorded in what we call the Old Testament. And he has spoken in these latter days through the word of his Son, Jesus Christ. whose accounts we find in the apostles' teaching, which were written down in the Gospels and the letters. That church tradition is the basis of our belief, and we believe as Christians that God's Holy Spirit dwells within his church and is guiding it to all truth. That doesn't mean that you've got an audio voice telling you what socks to pick in the morning, but what it means is that the Holy Spirit is guiding us, and church tradition, of which the best exemplar is the scriptures, is guiding us to conform to the image of the Father's Son, so that we might be made perfect
Yeah, do you want an argument on this?
in God. Go on.
Okay, fine. Right, first of all, you were arguing with the other chap about atheism and where he got his morals from, and he didn't make a very good job of it, I admit that. But I think, first of all, his case could be improved, and then I'll go on to what you've said, if you'd like to know that.
Do you want to take up his argument?
Yeah, I'll take up his argument.
So where do we get morals from in a world without God?
We get our morals from looking around and deciding what would be in the best interest of people.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, if you do have a God,
Okay.
and that God is crazy, which quite a lot of them
Like
are.
Allah, like Allah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Allah.
like
Yeah,
Allah.
fine. Or certain
he's
of,
mad as a hatter.
yeah, certain of the Amerindian gods, for example. You cut out the heart and hold it up in the air because that stops the universe from stopping. And this was a god, and they believed it, and so they did what the god said, and the result was millions of people were sacrificed. So having a god is a very risky business. You'd better get the right one. You better get a good one.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
On that one,
it's not
completely
as
agree.
bad if you haven't got a god at all, because then you look around and you can look for the evidence of your own senses. You know, are these people in distress? Is there warfare? Couldn't we bring that down
May I
a bit?
reply?
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
please.
So you said that what we need to do is look around
Yeah.
and decide what is the thing that would reduce suffering for persons.
Sure.
So how do we decide what is a person?
Well, is this the question? Are you talking about whether animals are persons or whether fetuses are persons?
I'm just asking, as an atheist,
Well-
how do you there are
Right, okay.
there are national socialists who would say that my Christian brother here is
Yes.
not a person.
That's right. Yes.
Or he is not a person.
Yes. Okay.
How do you argue against that as an atheist?
Well, I would argue against that by saying that the way we describe personhood
Yeah.
is in terms of, for example, what that person that creature, let's say creature, that creature shows in terms of response to stimuli. Does it feel pain? Can it do things like we can, like talk to us and argue with us? Now, if we took our friend here, I'm sure he would pass those tests wonderfully.
Okay.
So we'd say, yeah, he's a person with a natural
So you're
body
saying
law.
that we define a person by what responds to stimuli?
Yeah.
So are you saying that a handicapped person, someone who's in a state of paralysis and in a coma, is not a person?
No, because even in a coma,
Well, they are a person.
But
But they can't respond to stimuli?
No, well, they do respond to stimuli. I mean, if you give them an electric shock, they jump. There would be things that they
So
would
do
respond-
corpses? If you give an electric shock to a corpse, it will respond.
It will under certain circumstances. If you leave it for a week, it doesn't work
Yeah,
anymore.
rigor
But
mortis,
leave the
yeah.
guy in the coma for a week, he still does it. So that would be a way of testing between the two.
So you're saying that your definition of a person is that which responds to stimuli.
No.
So you're saying that a corpse within an hour of death is still a person.
It would actually be
Because you're right, rigor mortis sets in and then it won't.
It would be
but if
quite
it can
arguable.
respond to stimuli, a dead body for an hour after death is still a person by your definition.
I would be prepared to go that far because quite a few times they have put people in the morgue and said he's dead, and then he found out he wasn't. So
But that's non-dead people.
yeah,
I'm
well,
talking
being
about someone
prepared.
who's dead.
Yeah, but we have got to set a system for doing this for application. We're human. Sometimes get it wrong. I'd rather err on the
Right.
side of having the guy who really is dead counted
one
as not
second.
dead rather than vice versa.
Your logic, I would say, is irrational because within your definition of a person, we have dead people, and
No.
the fact is they're dead. And
Well, how do we know they're dead?
Well, because they're dead. Their
Oh, I
heart's
see.
not
We know they're
beating,
dead
their
because
brain
they're
is
dead. Now that is good.
But
He's
they-
criticising my logic. He says they're dead because they're dead.
Because their brain is dead, their heart has stopped, but they will still respond to stimuli, which is your logic of defining a
Yeah.
person. Now, let me ask you this question.
shouldn't have got into
But
this.
does that mean, by your logic, that a fertilized egg is a person?
A fertilised
They're
egg.
not a person.
No, I don't think that a zygote. You mean just at the time of fertilisation?
Immediately after
Yeah,
conception.
that's right. Yeah.
So they're not persons.
They're not a person, but they are a potential person.
Why are they not persons? They do respond to stimuli still.
Well, yes, but you see, when I started to explain this, and I gave this as one of the tests, you cut in and assumed that was all the tests. It has to fulfil more than that
Okay,
in
so
order
it's
to be a person.
more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is doing this,
So
and it is also potentially a
what
person.
other
So again, I'll
definitions?
give it the benefit of the doubt, like I will with the person who somebody else has said is dead, but quite often we find out isn't dead.
Are animals persons then by your logic?
The vegans would certainly say yes.
I'm not asking vegans,
No,
I'm asking
I
you.
know, I know. I would say that they're not persons.
They're not persons, but they respond to stimuli.
That's right, and I've said that is one of the tests, but not all of
So
them.
give me a characteristic that a human has that a primate doesn't.
A human. They're
Right,
human.
they
They're
sing
a
opera, for
I
example.
don't
What?
understand what
Singing
you're
opera. I've never heard an ape singing opera.
I've definitely heard apes singing.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
They do
making a
calls.
noise.
They're
Making a noise in the
well,
trees.
wouldn't an alien looking at human beings who doesn't know what opera is go? They're just making noise.
Well, if your argument depends upon what an alien would think, not that we know there are any aliens, if they saw somebody else making a noise, I think we're right down at the bottom there, aren't we?
But
Right
what
down
I'm
at the
saying
bottom.
to you, is opera is essentially just humans making noises.
No, it isn't.
Apes
No,
making
wrong.
noises.
Wrong. I think if you talk to somebody who knew something about opera, they would say it was a very particular sort of noise.
It is a particular sort of
So
noise.
if
So is
I-
a mating call.
Yes, but you might find, if you went into this, that the opera was a bit more complicated
So
than the mating call.
so I think that it seems to me that your decisions about what makes a person is arbitrary.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it is because I can show you many of the characteristics that a primate has that a human shares.
Yes, certainly it does. Yes.
Huge, in fact,
Quite a lot of them,
vast, including cognition and reasoning, and so a primate by these arbitrary standards, I could certainly include apes as persons.
Oh, and there are people who want to do this.
But
It's
the-
a tricky question.
But
You've
then
asked me
but
where I
we
would
also
answer.
include corpses after
Yeah.
an hour of death.
Yeah. Because we know that sometimes they get
But
up
we
and are not dead at all.
exclude conceived human beings in the womb.
That's right. Yes.
But they also respond to stimuli.
That's right. Yes, of course they do. Because I'll say this again because I think you missed it. You asked me what criteria would decide, and so I started naming criteria. It's
Okay,
a complicated question,
Yep.
and I can't answer it by one characteristic.
Fair
so
enough.
I gave one characteristic, and you jumped on that, and you assumed that was the only characteristic, and therefore anything with that characteristic I should
And then I
say was,
also
creature.
brought in the example of a primate, because a
Yes.
primate shares huge numbers of characteristics with human beings.
That's right. He does, but not all of them. You agree?
Such as?
Well, such as, for example, one of the problems that these people have who want to, the Great Ape Project is called, I don't know if you know about this, and that is to give human rights to chimps
I've
and
heard about
gorillas
them.
and things like that. That's right. One of the problems is, do you give what about the responsibility? Supposing that a chimp kills another chimp, and they do. So then do we haul the chimp off and have him executed or put in jail for 50 years? Because that's what we would do if we said they were equal exactly to humans.
Right.
So we don't do that, and some people have tried to get out of this by saying, well, let's consider them like mentally subnormal humans.
Let's advance the discussion, because
Yes, sure.
I think we can get bogged down in this definition.
yeah,
but,
okay.
but here's one of the reasons why I reject
Yeah.
this kind of reasoning, because it's so arbitrary. It's so arbitrary. Because both National Socialists and Communists gave a different answer to the question, what counts as a person?
But look, people give different answers to all sorts of things. We have a flat Earth society here. They give a different answer to what shape the Earth is.
So-
but that doesn't mean that
so-
this is a problem.
So 1 second. So what we need, therefore, in this disagreement is something outside of our arbitrary reasoning that we can look to and then make a decision. Would you not agree?
No, that doesn't work at all.
It doesn't?
No, because if you try that, then you, being a Christian, would go to the Christian God.
Correct.
The Muslim, being a Muslim, would go to the Islamic God.
Yes.
They would disagree with each other.
Yes.
So you're no near a solution
Can
before you...
I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's the okay?
Sorry.
What's
on you.
the problem with defining a person as a human being? Every human being is a person, and that's the only criteria. And and you asked, as an atheist, what would be my level of judging what's right and what's wrong? And you can say, well, compassion. I ought to treat every human being, every person. You can extend that to animals as well, with compassion, which means not.
Sorry,
To not, if you can't relieve
problem.
suffering, it's at least not to cause of the suffering, which then that pretty much covers all aspects of violence, of treating someone with disrespect on all levels, which covers from not letting
the
them on
reason-
the tube first
the
to
reason- the
a
reason-
genocide.
the
If we
reason-
want to talk about the Nazis,
The reason why I reject this reasoning is because it's so arbitrary.
it's not arbitrary.
It is arbitrary.
It's
Hold on one
it's
second.
100% because
Allow
it's
me to reply, because you've essentially said all persons are humans, or treating all
humans are
humans as
persons, okay.
Right, but
How is that
I
wrong?
would say, well, I would test that, because I find that people who make that argument are the first to say that conceived eggs are not persons.
The who?
Conceived human eggs are
I'm
not
pro-choice.
persons.
Yes,
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
pro-choice.
So you don't consider a conceived human being a human being?
I
do you?
consider a woman a human being, and I conceive a woman that can have the choice
Right,
what
so-
to do with her body and not be seen as an incubator,
So-
and have a choice of whether or not she
So
wants
it is
to
an
to
arbitrary
take on,
choice.
It's not an
So
arbitrary
if someone comes
choice.
along and
It's
says,
not- it's like you
someone
decide-
comes along and says Jews are not persons,
Or black people.
or black people,
I'm a Jewish
that is an arbitrary choice. I don't see any difference in your logic and their logic, and they
Well,
both
because
incidentally
if you're
lead to
saying-
mass
if you're
murder.
saying, well, if we want to take that into pro-choice or pro-life or whatever. When you tell a woman what to do with her body, that's A, taking away her self-autonomy, because you are telling her what to do with her body.
I don't
with
agree.
her
It's her
body.
body.
No, exactly. He's going to say it's God's body.
It's God's body.
Yeah. The
body
Well,
and the body.
you're telling her,
That's God's
you're
body
telling
too.
me, let's say I get pregnant and maybe I don't want to have, let's say I was, like a woman, not me, let's say a woman was, that's instances, a woman was raped, a woman, it was, how do you say the word in English?
Incest.
Incest?
Incest, yeah.
All those, and there are, certain religious streams that would say no, like they're 12-year-old and say, no, you still need to have that baby.
Yeah.
How is that compassion? How does that, I cannot understand how a Christian, let's say, or a Jew or whoever takes on a religion that says they're uncompassionate towards other people can say to a 12-year-old that was raised by her father, well, you still need to have that baby because it's not your body. Or how can you say, even just a normal woman, just 30-year-old woman got pregnant, she doesn't want the
So
baby.
allow me to reply.
Just the end of this argument. Doesn't want to have the baby, but you still said that you need to put yourself in a life-risking situation. Even if the pregnancy is completely normal, it can still end in death. And it's not just that; it's their psychological, emotional, financial
Yep.
applications to having a baby. It's not just carrying it for 9 months; it's taking care of it for the rest of its life.
So allow me to address that point. Firstly, your reasoning is wholly arbitrary. You're assuming that your body belongs to you. You're making that assertion. I disagree. I don't believe that your body belongs to you. I don't believe that my body belongs to me. And I don't believe that you have any rights over an embryo to dictate what happens to that embryo.
So why does that
Because
embryo? Why is that embryo more important
I
than me?
allow you to talk. Allow me to talk.
Yeah.
I don't think that you have the right to assert your rights over the rights of another, and that includes the embryo inside you. Now, in terms of your arbitrary markers, you're saying that I'm a person.
Supposedly arbitrary.
Yeah, well, they are arbitrary.
Supposedly.
They are definitely.
That's your argument.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are arbitrary. There's no other way.
Supposedly.
I mean,
Yours
an honest
are as
atheist
well,
would
mate.
accept that they are arbitrary. They're just
Pardon?
opinion. An honest atheist would accept they're making arbitrary decisions. So, in terms of talking about the rights of the mother, you've also got to consider the rights of the child. And those two rights have to be held in balance.
But you're not
Have to be
holding them
held
in balance. I'm an attorney. I went to law school.
It doesn't
and
mean
I
anything in this
No,
country.
I'll tell you something. Well, not in this country, but I'll tell you something. There is the. Well, that's to me. Thank you very much.
So when the
There
Nazis,
is-
sorry, you just
there
said,
is-
hold on, you just
Wait.
said law equals morality. That's what you just
No,
said.
I did not.
Look, you didn't. No,
I did
was
not
here
say
all the
that.
Did you
time.
not say that?
No, I did not say that. I want to say, in law school,
Okay.
we've discussed, constitutional rights and one person's right towards another person's rights, and you can say that. You can see that, let's say, in the U.S. with the Second Amendment, with the First Amendment. No, this is my right to carry a gun. This is my right of speech. What they teach in law school is that no right is unlimitless. No right is unlimitless.
Yeah.
So you're let's say I agree. Let's take on your
So your rights
argument.
over your body are not
Yeah.
limitless.
and your argument that the embryo has rights
Yes.
over me are not limitless as well. But you're putting their rights 100% over mine. But
I
you're
don't have a
also
problem
but
with
you
that.
also need but that's not that. How is that different from what you're
No,
supposedly
but
seeing me
that-
doing?
that-
Because in a situation where you
Right.
have the powerful holding life over the weak, then as a Christian, I stand up for the weak against
Are
the
you
powerful.
supporting the baby after the mother gives birth and she can't even afford a $400 abortion?
I
A baby
definitely
costs
think-
more than $400.
Allow me to address that. I'm amazed that you've just qualified human life to being $400. That's amazing, and very
I didn't do
dangerous
that, but
thinking
that's okay.
indeed.
That's what the procedure
Very
cost.
dangerous.
I did not do that. but
Very
that's okay.
dangerous. Very
well,
dangerous.
you're kind of taking words out of my mouth.
So you said because it costs more to look after a baby than it does to abort a baby, so you gave a value to human life.
No,
and
I said,
that
are
is the
you-
danger
I
of
did not do that.
atheistic
No, I did
rationale.
not do
Okay,
that. I
so-
did not do that.
Hold
Wait,
on,
wait.
one
No, I
second,
don't.
one
I'm not
second.
going to hold that.
One
If you're
second.
going to
You
take
can
my
come
word.
back. You
Wait,
can
wait.
come back to
No,
it.
I'm
You
going to
can
come
come
back
back
right
to it.
now because
One
I'm not.
second.
I'm what
In
I'm saying.
terms
You're taking
of-
my words. I'm not going to have a
in
discussion
terms
with you
of-
if you're not
you
going to
can come
respect me
back.
enough.
You can come
No, I'm not
back.
going to continue
You-
with the.
let
No,
that-
I'm
let
going
that
to say it
finish,
now
let that finish.
because you
Right.
just said something
No.
very, very severe. That's
Yeah,
not what I
so
said.
you will
I
have
said
the
a
time to
woman.
correct it. You
No,
will
I'm
have the
going to
time
correct it
correct
right now because
You
you're going to go
also
off on a
said-
premise.
No,
You're
no,
going
no.
off of a premise that's
No,
not
I was making a
correct.
separate point actually.
Well,
I
then
was
let
gonna
me
make a
then let me
separate
end
point.
this point. I'm not
Okay,
putting
I'll let
I'm
you-
not
I'll let
putting
you
a
address
value.
that
I'm not
point.
putting value in human life, but I am saying if a woman can't afford, yeah, $400 procedure, how much does it cost to raise a baby?
So you are placing a value on
No,
human
but
life.
it costs to raise a baby.
So what you're saying is,
food costs money.
so what you're
Diapers
saying is
cost
it's
money.
cheaper to kill the baby than to raise the baby. That's what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Is it
exactly.
a good life for the baby if the mother can't afford to feed it?
So the separate point that I was going to make before you interrupted is that because I hold to the belief that you shouldn't have the right to abort a child, then flowing from that
Very
point,
easy to say.
What
I
if it's
also
life-threatening?
believe. I also believe.
What if it's
I
life-threatening?
also believe.
What if it's incest?
I also believe that society owes it to such mothers to support them.
Because a woman go, oh, la-di-da, I'll have an abortion today.
I would-
like, do you really
I
think
wouldn't
a woman?
characterise
do you
any
really think a
women.
woman?
I'm not
do you really
against
think
what
a
you're
woman?
saying at
It's
all,
very
but I have
easy
to
to
ask
say
this
this as a
question.
man, isn't it?
What a time,
I just have
guys.
to ask you this question, though.
Oh, she's walking away.
I'm not walking away. I'm letting other people
No,
speak.
actually, it might tie in with what you're saying. I just wanted to ask one question.
I
I'm
need
not
to go.
against either one of you.
doing really
I
well.
just wanted to know, is there actually a law in the Bible by God which says abortion is forbidden?
It comes the way that the Christian. It is a good question and it's a fair question. The way that Christian reasoning works is this: we start with Jesus, and Jesus's dignity as the Son of God happened at his conception, which is why Christians believe that life begins at conception. That's where our logic flows out of, because the dignity that Christ, when the Logos becomes a man, that dignity he then bestows on the entirety of humanity, so that all human beings have dignity from their conception. So that's where we're getting our
Can I
rationale.
come back to what I think is the fundamental flaw in all this? I think that you have this idea that, okay, if you want to settle one of these moral questions and you go, say, to the atheists will come up with all sorts of different ideas and you don't get anywhere. Whereas, if you go to religion, if you go to God, then no problem, it's all solved. Now, the problem with this is, first of all, working out which God it is, as I've said before, and those gods disagree with each other as ferociously as various atheists do. Some of the things that the atheists might do, which might be wicked, such as, for example, the Nazis wiping out the Jews, are delightfully balanced by some of the things that appear in the Old Testament, such as massacring all the Amalekites. You might say the Jews are worse because there were more Jews killed, but then there were more people around by the 20th century. But it's the same problem. You've got no more foundation than the atheists have got. It does come down within Christianity. There are people such as yourself who say it is crystal clear that we do not have abortion, and there are others who see equally crystal clear that you do. It's absolutely useless for settling anything.
Okay, so allow me to address that point.
Sure, yes,
So
please.
I am not saying that there are disagreements between religions or even within the same religion. What I am saying is that within the Christian faith, we are offered an objective narrative that we can get involved in that gives us a common language to work out these questions. And then, because we're working from a common narrative, because we're working from a common language, we can decipher these questions within a moral paradigm that is given to us. In an atheist worldview, all moral paradigms are stripped away, and it simply becomes about who can impose their beliefs on the other.
No, it's not as simple as that.
No, it is. Because what happens is,
Yes.
in an atheistic worldview, you have one question, such as abortion, and then atheists come out with different answers to that question.
Just like Christians.
No, Christians don't.
The Christians
No, they
do.
don't.
Oh, yeah, they do.
No.
Yeah, they do. Yes,
No,
yeah,
hold
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Christians that argue in favour of abortion are arguing against their own faith.
That's exactly
And
what
that's
you
the
would say,
difference.
and they would probably say the
That's
same about you.
difference. That's the difference.
And of course,
But-
the communists
but
and
an atheist,
the
hold on,
Nazis said rude
but
things
here's the
about each other,
difference.
and you too will. Of course you will.
But here's the difference. An atheist could never make the objection that I've just made. Because you have no objective standard to appeal to say you're arguing against the principles of atheism. But I can argue you're arguing against the principles of Christianity.
And that means
that's
that
why
when
it's
you
different.
get it wrong, it's even worse because you have a religious conviction behind you, which spurs you on to do more of the evil particular thing that you did at the time. For example, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Now, if that was the few atheists debating it, they'd be like, oh, well, she's okay, you know, leave her alone. No, it's in the book. You've got to kill them.
So let's just look at that. Let's just
Yeah.
look at that. Because you've raised up a couple of examples from the Old Testament.
Good.
But let us just remember
Yeah.
that the 20th century
Yeah.
has been the bloodiest century in human history, and it has been atheistic ideologies that have dominated throughout. Through abortion, through the gulags of the Soviet communists, and through the death camps of the Nazis. More people have been killed, such as Pol Pot, 100 million through communism. And these are intrinsically atheistic ideas. So the idea that having religion makes it more potent because you have conviction is a red herring argument. Because communists had conviction when they killed 100 million people. The Nazis had conviction when they killed more than 6 million people. The liberals have conviction when they abort children in the death clinics that are dotted across the Western world. So, in terms of the Old Testament examples that you gave, you are talking to a Christian.
Yeah.
A Christian believes that the Old Testament captures the Old Covenant. Christians believe that Christ inaugurates a new covenant, and that new covenant means that those examples you speak of in the past, we do not apply.
Oh, but you
So
believe they were
argue
right to have
against
applied
my
them at the
faith.
time?
Yes,
Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you.
at the time.
Right, fine. Now, also, if you talk about all these millions of people who died in the 20th century, and this was more than ever before, my reply to that is, first of all, there's more people in the 20th century than there ever was before. So if you had a dictator, or supposing Peter the Great was as bad as Stalin, well, he couldn't have killed as many people because there wasn't as many people in Russia at the time. So that's part of the reason why there's a bit of a fallacy slipping in here. Also, this killing was, for example, okay, let's take say the 30 Years' War. How many people died in that?
I don't know.
No, I don't know. But I know that Germany was reduced to half its population. How many people died under Genghis Khan? We don't know. So we don't know.
Genghis Khan wasn't a Christian.
Oh, no, suggesting he was. No. I'm not suggesting he was. He wasn't a Christian, but he was a religious man.
So your argument is essentially people die.
No, my
in war.
argument is that people who believe in God kill other people.
And
And people who don't
hold on.
believe in God kill other people.
So
And
it's not an argument then against religion, is it? If you're saying essentially it makes no difference whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, and you still kill people, that isn't an argument against believing in God.
No, and you can believe in God if you like, and we can have nice
So it's-
debates like this
but
in
the
the pub.
point is-
But if you start
the
getting
point is
messages
it's
from God that you
not-
have to kill
the
people,
point
and
is
some of them
you've just-
do, then it becomes rather
You've
nasty.
just killed your own argument. You've just
No,
killed your
no,
own
no,
argument
no,
because
no.
essentially you've said it makes no difference. I agree with you, it makes no difference. Why doesn't it make a difference? Because human sin exists in the heart, and the scriptures talk about that reality. It talks about the reality of human sin. It identifies that the human heart is selfish and corrupted and self-gratifying and self-serving, and it speaks to that truth as being the flaw in mankind. Now, to define what is true, it is that description that most closely matches reality.
Yes.
So in this regard, the Christian faith is true because it describes the corruption of the human heart. To wit, there is huge amounts of evidence that the human heart is selfish, is self-serving, is self-absorbed, is self-seeking. But how does it address that point? It addresses that point that you need to recenter yourself, not on the self, not on the me, not on the I, but on the I am, and the love that he is, that flows through you into others. And ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est is what we say.
Okay,
Where
so you do.
there is love, there
Yeah.
is God.
Yeah.
So we recenter ourselves not on the natural selfishness of human nature, but towards a selflessness. Now, answer me, do you think that that is a good thing to do?
Not necessarily. It depends how they define their term. You yourself have just said, okay, so we're agreeing there's no difference in some ways between Christianity and non-Christianity. There are versions of even of Christianity and certainly of other religions that are absolutely appalling. That is about the worst thing that anybody could do. So no, I don't think that it's a great success. I don't think that it's got any grasp at all about human psychology. It is absolutely devoted to sin and you're horrible and original sin and more sin, you all deserve to go to hell. What about the good side of human?
I don't think it. I think it's probably been a long time since you've hung around with Christians, because
last week actually.
I hang around with plenty of Christians, and one thing that I don't hear them is going around saying you're horrible, you're a sinner. That is not what I hear when I meet with Christians.
Perhaps you go to meet different Christians.
It's a straw man.
No, it's not a straw man. It's just that you're not well educated.
Maybe if you hang out with Christians who are saying that, you need to find other Christians, because I would like to meet the Christians that you know that are doing that, because I would wonder if these people actually exist, or whether you've just created.
Really? Have you ever read St. Augustine?
Sorry, 1 second. I didn't interrupt you. I would be interested to see if these Christians you talk about actually exist, and I'd like you to introduce me to them, because I think you've just created a straw man. I really do.
You put your head right on the ball.
That's fine. I'm quite happy to put it there. So now, in terms of the argument, right?
Yeah.
Christianity recenters us on a selfless love, and it defines that love as being a sacrificial action that you do for the benefit of others. Yeah? Now, criticize that way of living for me. Tell me why that is not a good way to live.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Christians. Have you ever heard of a man called St. Augustine?
I am a Christian.
Yes, yeah, but you don't seem to know much about them.
I know about
there's a lot of them around, so you can be in a little group and not know them.
I know
Have
about
you ever
St.
heard of
Augustine.
St. Augustine?
Yes, I know St. Augustine.
Do you know what he said about sin?
Yeah.
What did he say about
He
it?
talked about the original sin and the full depravity of man.
He talked about that and he went on and on and on, didn't he, about his pears that he stole and how this was terrible. And he'd done a lot of other things in his life, but he picks on something that's bad and this is really evil. And would you agree that he was a bit off-centre about these views?
So, the book that he's quoting, and it was actually apples, not pears.
Naturally, it's pears, not apples.
I reckon it's apples, not
And I
pears.
reckon it's pears, not
And
apples.
it's in the Confessions of St. Augustine, a book that I've read from cover
That's
to
right,
cover.
yes, so you should have remembered
Yeah.
it. But maybe it's a mistranslation.
But he's talking about the depravity of human sin is actually found in his other works, particularly the City of God. And that's the writing of St. Augustine, because and that's where the idea of the depravity of original sin is talked about. Now, in terms of what he is teaching, I don't have any problem with it. I agree that human beings cannot reach God from their own effort. That is what I believe.
Yeah.
And I see countless examples that human nature is bent inward to itself.
So you as
So
a
I
Christian,
think that is a accurate description
you as a
of reality.
Christian don't believe that humanity is sort of in the middle, a bit good, a bit bad, but it balances out. You believe there's a great big sort of steer over towards sin, evil, wicked.
I think that man
Yes.
cannot reach God by their own effort.
Well, that wasn't quite what I asked, so shall I ask it again? Or will you just answer it?
Except that your question needs to be unpacked a little, because you're asking me as a Christian, so you're asking about my worldview. And my worldview is not that we just exist on this horizontal plane in which there are questions of good and evil, but there is also a lateral plane that we exist on in terms of our relationship to God. And questions about original sin primarily are about how we can reach God.
And you believe that we can't do it on our own.
Correct.
Exactly, thank you. Because we are tilted over towards sin. We're more bad than we are good.
I don't think it's these kind of measurements.
Because heaven's for the good place, people. Hell's for the bad place. We're somewhere in the middle, so we might get in.
So deal with my actual position. My position is that human nature is inherently selfish, self-seeking, and self-serving.
That's right. Not that it's inherent.
Do you disagree?
Yeah, you've got half of it, but you forgot
You
the other
disagree.
half. I disagree that that's the full explanation. I'm saying you've got half of it right.
What's
the
the
other
answer?
half of it is that he's altruistic, brave, courageous, loving, and all those other things that the Christians tend to forget because they can't have humans having it. That have to be gifts from God, and that's where they get it all wrong.
Well, and your evidence for this is what?
Well, the evidence is that around you, people who are not Christians.
No, hold on. Your evidence that this grace of courage
Yeah.
and altruism does not come from God. Where is your support for that assertion?
Well, because there's no evidence that it comes from God.
Right.
Some of the
So
people
it's
who
an
do
assertion.
Well, no. If you haven't got any evidence for it,
It's an assertion.
if you haven't got any evidence, okay, if you haven't got any evidence for all this evil stuff being in us, then I would say it was an assertion, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that these things happen. I mean, perhaps even you agree that these things happen. There is courage and love and those
Yes,
sort of things.
yes,
and
absolutely.
people sometimes do this who are not even Christians.
Yeah, totally.
Fine. So your assertion is that it comes from God.
Yes.
My assertion is that it doesn't.
Yes.
Right?
It is a metaphysical question, which means that neither
No.
of us can deposit physical evidence.
No, it
to
does
the
mean
fact.
something, because it's not as simple as that. Because in a situation like this, you are bringing an extra facts into the argument.
Is there a problem with that?
The idea of when you argue, the best arguments are the ones that use the least number of assumptions. You are adding another assumption. You're bringing in God, a really big one as well.
Well, I think actually the reverse of that is the denial of God's existence is also a huge assumption.
No, if I deny the existence of
On what basis?
well, no, if I deny, for example, the existence of space aliens, and you insist that there are space aliens, it's for me to say to you, well, produce the evidence for a space alien, not for you to say to me, produce the evidence that there isn't one.
But you're making a statement about the nature of reality.
Yes.
Right? And that statement about the nature of reality is based upon premises that you yourself, I think, when tested, will find out inconsistent. Because essentially what you've just said is, before I should believe in something, I have to have evidence. Is that correct?
Yeah, I really go for that, yeah.
That's his argument.
Absolutely.
Right, fine. Okay, can you tell me who proved that principle to you? When did they prove it, and what evidence did they use to do so?
The evidence that they use to do so is a utilitarian argument, because it is
An argument,
it's an argument, yes.
a philosophy.
Philosophy, yes.
So
I know
no.
philosophy has terrible meanings.
My question, if you're just going to move your assumption back, what I want you to prove is your assumption. Because your assumption is that you can't believe in something without evidence.
Yes.
So prove to me that principle.
No, the assumption is that you shouldn't believe in things without evidence. Oh, they do it all the time. I'm not saying it's impossible. I would say that you were a splendid example of it. So we have a system of reasoning, and we have rules to that game. And one of those rules is that if you bring in assumptions without good cause, when you could explain the thing just as easily without it, Occam's razor, yeah, that is a bad argument. Now, if you want to, you can say, well, I don't subscribe to that club. No, I'm not going to subscribe to that club. So we'll see where it leads, and we'll see where it leads straight into chaos, because anybody can start believing in anything and say, no, I don't have to have any
With
evidence.
respect,
Yes.
I asked you a very simple question. You said that you have this principle that you should not believe in something without evidence.
Yes, that's right.
So,
Yes.
show me where is the evidence that proves this principle.
No. You've not quite understood.
No, I really have.
No. Okay.
Then go on.
Imagine, say, the American legal system, and you have constitutional laws, and you have laws that are then devolved from that. This is like one of the constitutional laws. It's one of the ground rules, if you like, if that makes it easier for you.
So what you're saying is your principle is an unproven assumption.
Oh, you can't prove it. No, I'm not suggesting for one moment that
There
you
you go.
prove it. What I
Which is what I said at the beginning. It would be an unproven assumption.
What I said at the beginning was that this is one of those. I said it went to utilitarianism. You remember utilitarianism in this?
Right, well, let's bring in utilitarianism.
Yeah, because I said that it was much easier to get somewhere if you do this, if you assume that you won't bring in all sorts of weird assumptions.
Let's just deal with the utilitarian prism, because what you've done is you've accepted that you're working from an unprovable assumption, and fine, that is as unproven in physical terms as belief in God. So we're even on that sense. But then you said, but look at the utility of this principle.
Exactly, yes.
Right, hold on, 1 second.
Yes, fine, yes.
But what you've missed is I think it's Copper's critique of positivism, which is this idea that reason is boundless, because the fact of the utility of the scientific method is contained within a prism. It only works within physical constructs. It does not have any interpretive power to questions of metaphysics, and therefore it cannot be used as an argument for or against strongly the existence of God. You're not talking science when you deny God's existence, you're talking philosophy.
Sure, yeah, I'm very happy with that. What I would say, again, it's utilitarianism.
But you're
so
hiding
let's
it behind
No,
science.
not hiding behind it. You've just challenged me on this, and I've said, yeah, that's how it is, so it's not hiding it. What I say is, let's take two groups of philosophers, or scientists, or both, and let one play by the rules that of Occam's razor, and let the other group play by Popper's critique of positivism.
No, Karl Popper critiqued.
Yes, that's it. Popper's critique
Positivism.
of positivism. That's right. That's what I said.
Those two the positions you're setting up are not exclusive to one another.
No, I'm not suggesting they are.
Okay, fair.
No. But one is one and one is the other. And so what I'm suggesting is, let us set up discussion groups, one based on one and one based on the other. Now, on the first one, the one that follows Occam's razor, you would have people straining to bring forward evidence to justify this assumption and so on and so forth. In the other one, it would be like a chimps tea party, because anybody could say, oh, well, no, but I mean, there is the fact about that seven-legged wombat, and they say, well, what seven-legged wombat? And they say, well, I believe it.
No, I think you've misrepresented both Occam's razor and Karl Popper's critique of positivism. But here I want to actually present to you a good reason why there is good reason to believe in God.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Oh, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
I studied physics at university.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. And as I'm sure you know, in terms of the physical world, we are able to describe it through mathematics.
Hopefully we can.
No, we do.
No,
not hopefully. We
do
do describe the world through mathematics.
All right. This trick is to just keep telling me the same thing you said and not let me reply.
Well, let me finish my point. Okay. So, physicists use maths to describe the world in theories, and then those theories, because of the rudiments of the maths, then go on to predict other things, which we can then verify through the process of falsification. Okay? Now, that process of falsification sometimes disproves theories, and sometimes it proves them.
They got it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact of the matter is that the very fact that those mathematical formulae have predictive power means that through human cognition we are tapping into a code that is deeply rooted into the structures of the universe. Now, I would ask you, firstly, have you ever found a code that didn't have a code giver, and have you ever found a structure that didn't have a designer?
When you talk about a code, you are already assuming that it does have a designer. So that is simply collapses into saying the same thing twice.
Right. So I'll rephrase
and
the argument.
Designer and the designer does the same thing.
No.
It's all when you've got the answer in the question.
No, you're dodging around the implications.
No. I don't know what the implications are, and I'm very ready to meet them.
So
but
deal
we'll
with
sort this one out first.
So deal with the implication that what we have is a code that is tapping into the structure of the universe. Have you ever encountered a code? That's the question. Have you ever encountered a code that does not have a code giver? And have you ever encountered a structure that does not have a designer?
Right. The first one, no, of course I haven't, because a code is something which an intelligent person makes up. So of course you've got the answer in the question. Well done, but it gets you nowhere. The other one, the structure. Oh yeah, the structures in things that don't seem to have any structure given. Go to Giant's Causeway and look at the structure of the rocks.
No, I would say that has a designer.
Oh no, you would,
Yeah.
but you can't get to the designer just by showing me rocks that are shaped in a particular way.
Well, firstly, on the issue of the code.
Yes.
On the issue of a code.
Yes.
You have a good foundation there for believing in a designer, because a code is by its nature given by intelligence.
Of course it is. That's why I'm
Right.
saying it's a circular thing. You're asking a question that the answer's in already.
What I'm saying to you is that through the study of the natural world and our mathematical descriptions of that mathematical world, we have tapped into a pre-existent code.
That's what you believe. Yes.
That way, it's obvious.
No, it's not obvious.
The reason why it's obvious is because once we tap into this code, we're actually able to predict things that only much later are we verifying through scientific experiment, such as the Higgs boson.
Presumably, you know that it is possible to make a good prediction and your theory be to be completely wrong.
If you've got your maths wrong, yeah.
No, if you got your maths wrong. You got some of your fundamental principles wrong. For example,
Yeah.
For example, you know, in the
But in physics, it's all described with maths.
in the Ptolemaic system, You know, the Earth's the centre of the planets go round.
Yeah.
Okay. You could predict eclipses. Not perfectly, but not bad.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah.
bad. Better than you could under Copernicus.
I'm going to have to go in 3 minutes.
All right, okay. Better than you could under Copernicus, but that didn't mean the Ptolemaic system was right. Now, I think, and I'm not just making this up now because I'm arguing with you, but I really do think all the time that what we've got to in astrophysics is something like the end of the Ptolemaic system, where it's having to be propped up with deference and epicycles and all sorts, and they're putting in more and more assumptions. So you've got dark matter to explain why the universe hasn't crunched. Then you have to bring in dark energy to explain away some of the factors of that. And there's no evidence for any of these.
Well, the Platonic, I think it's actually the Aristotelian system of the heliocentric Earth, the heliocentric solar system, and that was crushed by Copernicus and then by Galileo.
Perfected it.
But you're right in saying that when you get your starting assumptions wrong, your predictions can be wrong. But the thing is, it's all described with mathematics.
Nice.
And one second. And the fact is that mathematics, it is a code. It is literally a code. That we, but it is.
Your faith.
It is. No. This is physics. This is physics.
It's not physics.
They are describing They are describing movements.
Yeah.
They are describing processes. They are describing structures with mathematics. Mathematics is a human language. The fact that use of the human language, we are able to make predictions of what that world will do next, indicates that the world is working by a code that we have tapped into, and a code has intelligence.
So why is astrophysics in such a mess?
It's not.
I think
they're struggling with the grand unifying theory.
They've been struggling with that for a long time, but they seem to be losing. The grand unifying theory seems to be beating them on this.
Not at all.
They haven't managed to crack it up since the time of Einstein. Einstein, of course,
I've got
said
no
that
flag to fight for science as being the supreme form of knowledge, because I don't believe it is.
Okay, good.
But I have to go.
I understand that. Okay.
So it was nice talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Wrap up.
So guys, in our discussions, we've seen the Muslim Dawah guy who was butthurt from the week before come back to want to talk about hadith literature again. And then once again, the moment we start quoting that hadith literature to him, even though it's Sahih, even though it's Hassan, he wants to say it's weak. Now weak is Da'if, but the ones that I quoted were not Da'if, they were Sahih and Hassan. And what that indicates is that Muslims have no agreement upon the reliability of their hadiths, and they need those hadiths to interpret the Quran, which means the whole system of Islam just starts to collapse. And the fact that they are embarrassed by their prophet and they don't want to defend him, they just want to get off the topic, indicates that in their soul, their emotional intelligence is telling them that Muhammad's an embarrassment. And if your prophet is an embarrassment to you, stop following him. Follow someone better, because you won't find any Christians embarrassed by the Lord Jesus Christ. Then we had an atheist guy who wanted to throw out the normal poppycock and when challenged, walked away. And atheistic logic is by its nature arbitrary. It doesn't. I'm not arguing that Christians don't agree or that religions don't agree amongst one another. But what I'm saying is that in a world where God exists, you have a moral paradigm, you have a common language that you can use to negotiate the moral questions. In a world without God, all you have is your assertion and your ability to impose it upon others, because there is no commonality. It is you say this and I say this. And if we disagree strongly enough, there isn't something that we can appeal to settle our differences. We just have to fight it out. And that is an arbitrary view of the world. And finally, for those of you that are atheists like the ones that I've spoken to, I want you to address this question and deal with this question. The physics, the study of the physical universe uses mathematics to describe that physical universe. Those mathematic formulae make predictions about what the world will do next. And both of that predates our invention of maths, because maths is a human language, which means that human language has tapped into a code that shows the structures of the cosmos. And when have you ever had a code without a code giver? When have you ever had a structure without a designer? There are sufficient reasons to have belief in God. Oh, and incidentally, the science, even though Genesis is not a scientific textbook and should not be read as a science textbook, its science is still superior to that found in the Quran.